Welcome back to another episode of 836 Ministries. My name is Ryan Tieford. I'm glad that you have tuned in with me. Tonight, we're going to be talking about one of my personal favorite end-time conversation pieces, which is a third temple update. That's right. We're going to be talking about the third temple being rebuilt in Jerusalem. I believe the third temple conversation is one of the clearest signs that we can watch for and understand where we're at and what's happening with Bible prophecy. For almost 2,000 years, there has been no Jewish temple in Jerusalem, no altar, no sacrifices, no Holy of Holies. And yet the Bible says clearly that before the end comes, a temple will exist again, not symbolically, not metaphorically, but literally. Right now, the vessels are prepared, the priesthood is trained, the garments are made, the blueprints exist, and conversations that used to be unthinkable are now public. So the question is not, is the third temple going to be built? The question is why Scripture says it has to be there and who it will actually serve. Because the third temple is not just going to be about worship, it's about power, control, allegiance, and deception. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the third temple is one of the clearest end time indicators we're watching right now.
We will all see the building of the third temple in Jerusalem very soon. Our job to bring and to build the third temple is to unite. And we honor President Trump for what he has done for Jerusalem and for the Jewish people.
One of my first videos that I ever uploaded onto YouTube was about the sacrifice of the red heifer. If you remember, not too long ago, I believe back in June 2025, there was large reports of the red heifer that was sacrificed on the Mount of Olives. And there has been a huge divide on whether or not what took place there was official or not. If you don't believe the Lord is about to return, let me tell you what just happened and then tell me if you still feel the same. July 8th, there was supposed to be a red heifer ceremony. But before they went to do the ceremony, a priest found a black hair intermixed in with the red heifer's hair. So you would think that the ceremony would just stop there because the red heifer was disqualified. Well, that's not the case. Instead of stopping the ceremony, what they did was use this as an opportunity to do a rehearsal, sacrifice, and ceremony.
A red heifer raised in Israel was disqualified for sacrifice after two black hairs were found on its body. It was what was used in a practice burning ceremony for the trained priests. While no date for an actual sacrifice has been announced, the rehearsal included ritual garments, priestly training, and a demonstration of the altar procedure.
So as you saw in that video, and you can see here in the picture, the actual red heifer in the flames of the fire being sacrificed so that it can be burnt to ashes for the purification ceremony. So I know a lot of people are like, why does this matter? Number one, had they not found the black hairs that disqualified this red heifer, the ceremony would have happened. But this also shows us and tells us that they are actively trying to make this ceremony happen. If you're a believer, share this out. People need to know that this is happening. Spread the gospel, stay guarded. The Lord's returning. And I think it's important for us to first establish what happened there and if it was considered to be a legitimate sacrifice, because it matters going into how soon the temple would be rebuilt and where they're at now. All of it matters. So number one, I'll just tell you, the Temple Institute, which is like the number one institute over in Israel, who is trying to really get the temple rebuilt. They put out an announcement, and I'm gonna let you see the announcement here in just a second. But they put out an announcement just the other day saying that what took place with the red heifer sacrifice back in June was actually just a rehearsal, a practice. Now, what I will tell you, depending on who you talk to and where you're getting your information, there are people who were a part of that sacrifice that will 100% tell you that to them, this red heifer being sacrificed was absolutely legit.
You're the man who provided Israel with the pure red heifer Yeah.
to rebuild the third temple.
And there were those that said it wasn't a pure cow. It was the purest we had there.
So,
And it produced these ashes. For the first time in 2,000 years, we have the ashes. Building of the temple will be the actual work of the rabbis and the Cohen, the priests that are Jewish. That will be their responsibility.
And the reason it matters is because when they sacrifice the red heifer officially, it is going to be for a ceremonial cleansing of the tools and the priests and the people who are going to actually be rebuilding the temple. So this matters a lot more than what people actually make it out to be. So let's look at the announcement that they gave. This announcement is from the Temple Institute themselves. It says, in light of incorrect information that has been published regarding the red heifer, the Temple Institute would like to announce. Now they're going to go into all of the reasons why the red heifer sacrifice was not official. For about 10 years, the Temple Institute has been engaged in preparations for producing the ashes of the red heifer, both from an educational and practical perspective. The observance of these commandments, the raising of a red heifer according to Torah law, and the production of kosher ashes for the purification of the ritually impure is very complex and includes thousands of details which require great knowledge and skill in execution. Therefore, the process also includes a number of practice experiments and exercises. So now they really start to get into it. Number 2, about 3 months ago, a practice was held in the Sumerian mountains in which a simulation of the making of the ashes of the red heifer was conducted. 3, of course, ashes of the red heifer that are not made on the Mount of Olives while facing the site of the holy temple are completely invalid. And then they give the Torah scripture for that. Therefore, we clarify that the simulation was only an exercise. So this is big, guys. So if this wasn't just an exercise, if this was 100% legitimate, I believe that we would be seeing the temple rebuilt right now. So they said the act was not kosher for additional reasons, including a heifer was chosen for the exercise whose overall color was red, but was nevertheless the most invalid and unkosher of the heifers in our possession. Its tail was damaged and had a defect. So that's kind of going back to what I was telling you. When the priests or whoever it is that's going to be looking at the red heifer, man, they examine them so thoroughly. I believe most of the red heifers that have been disqualified have come from some type of defect, like a damaged tail or a black hair showing up in the midst of red hair. So they're very thorough about looking into the red heifer before they actually would do the sacrifice. Well, here they said, likewise, the priestly garments worn by the Cohen conducting the practice exercise were not consecrated. The purpose of the exercise was to improve our readiness for producing the ashes. So basically, the priestly garments, the Cohen has a specific garment that they'll wear for the sacrifice, and it has to be completely consecrated before he does so. So they're saying that was even invalid. But I find it still very intriguing that they are doing practices like this. They said the purpose of the exercise was to improve our readiness. So they are practicing, they are preparing, they are making sure that when it comes time, they are ready. I wasn't going to read this bottom part here, but I think it shows how determined and how much they really are preparing for the real thing. It says the exercise improved our understanding of the process as well as the Cohen's skill. And also, let me say something about that. The Cohen skill. So the Cohen has to be able to take out the sacrifice pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? They got to get it done diligently. Like, they don't want the animal suffering. And so there's a specific way that he will cut it in order that it doesn't suffer. So they're saying the Cohen still has to practice his skill in that, and also revealed various weak points that they must deal with, such as the proper way to lead the heifer to its destination. I find that interesting. I wonder if that has something to do with the tail defect. Like, I wonder if this was going to be the sacrifice, and then on the way to the actual, ritual or cleansing or whatever, that something happened as they were leading the heifer to the sacrifice. Who knows? Ultimately, this is what matters right here. All of the ashes are completely ineligible. All of the heifer's ashes are completely ineligible. They could not use them. The last little bit here that I found to be interesting or important, there are currently 4 red heifers at the Shiloh site, some of which are owned by Rabbi Ariel, head of the Temple Institute. Their status has not yet been definitively determined, and we are monitoring them. So out of the 5 red heifers that were brought to Israel, obviously they pre-game sacrificed one for a rehearsal, and now they are left with 4. And so they're telling us they still have 4 red heifers to examine, to look at, and to try to make this ceremonial cleansing take place. So there you go, guys. That's the update on that. The red heifer sacrifice that took place back in June was not legitimate. They are not counting it. They're saying the ashes, none of them are eligible. They are not deeming any of them pure to be able to start cleansing the instruments that are going to be used to rebuild the temple. I find this important because it lets us know how far, how close they are to the rebuilding of the temple. Now, what I will say is that there has been a push to rebuild the third temple like we have never seen in the last year or so. And there's a lot that's taking place to get to the rebuilding of the third temple. Now, you have to understand how strict the laws were on the people of Jerusalem and Israel when they want to go to the Temple Mount to pray, to worship, or any of that. The Temple Mount is controlled by IDF. It's controlled by Muslim soldiers. I don't know the correct abbreviations for them or whatever, but you have to understand that it is locked down, and there is a certain time of day that the Jewish people are able to actually come and worship. And before, they weren't allowed to take like prayer cards. They were limited to certain things that they were allowed to have on the Temple Mount. Well, now you're starting to see this shift, and I'm gonna be honest, ever since the war in Gaza with Hamas, things have started to shift on the Temple Mount. Matter of fact, not too long ago, there was a U.S. Congresswoman who was basically calling for Jews and Christians alike to be able to have full access to the Temple Mount. Right now, the Jews and Christians can either go to the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall, and make their prayers, or they can kind of go like on the outside of the Temple Mount and pray, and they can face, the Dome of the Rock, but they right now don't have full access to the Temple Mount. And so a U.S. Congresswoman not too long ago was trying to really push for Christians and Jews to have the ability to do that. And so my point is, you're starting to see a push and a fight to get to the Temple Mount. And I believe we're not far from seeing all of this take place, but this is just this year, 2026. It says, Israel police loosen Temple Mount prayer restrictions for Jewish visitors. Under the new policy, Jewish visitors may enter the site with a single prayer page, provided it is prepared in advance and distributed at the entrance by the Temple Mount Yeshiva. This is actually the prayer card that they are now able to carry. They're passing them out as people go up there to pray and worship. I believe in this golden banner, I believe that says something like the Golden Gate prayer. And in the blue box, I find it interesting that it's actually talking about the prophecy where Jesus, or to them, the Messiah, will touch down on the Mount of Olives and come through the Golden Gate, the Eastern Gate. So I find that interesting. But yeah, man, so laws are starting to loosen on the Temple Mount. That is just another sign that they're getting closer to the Golden Dome. Found this interesting because they're literally calling this a first step. It says Jewish prayer is returning to the Temple Mount for the first time in 2,000 years. Jews are allowed to pray with printed pages at our holiest site. Now watch this. It says, we will not settle for anything less than full freedom. And that was just on January 22nd. So that lets you know how recent this is, and that the push and fight for the Jews to see this disappear and a third temple be rebuilt is still very strong. This is a connection that I find to be very interesting. And I think there could be something here that would help lead Israel to the rebuilding of the third temple, as far as having the backing from an Arab Muslim nation. This gentleman is the exiled prince of Iran, and obviously that's Benjamin Netanyahu. And right now, with the tension taking place in Iran and the protesters calling for regime change, and the Islamic regime that's been murdering and executing these protesters, obviously the world is calling for this regime change. Donald Trump has told the protesters to hold on because help is on the way. I believe the plan is looking like, once somebody knocks off this Islamic regime, the exiled prince is going to step back into power. And I think this is going to help Israel get to rebuild the temple, because he's going to introduce what is called the Cyrus Accords. And basically it is the same thing as Donald Trump's Abraham Accords, but it's normalizing relationship with Iran and Israel again for the first time in a very long time. Obviously calling it the Cyrus Accords because of King Cyrus in the Bible, you know, the Prince of Persia, who normalized relationship with Israel in the Bible. So that's kind of the play on that there. But I think what's going to happen is he will step into power. And once he steps into power, Israel will finally have a nation, an Arab, Muslim, Islamic nation that would be willing to say, hey, why don't we just take out the Dome of the Rock and give Israel their rebuilt temple, being that the land the Dome of the Rock sits on belongs to Israel anyway. And if you look into it, a lot of Muslims and Islam don't really even hold the Dome of the Rock they hold it in high regard, but not like other relics and temples that they have like in Mecca. You can actually find where Saudi Arabia, matter of fact, I'll show you, hold on. Back in 2022, the Saudis said the Temple Mount and Al-Aqsa Mosque is not important to Islam. In further departure from Palestinian narratives, Saudis recognize Jewish connection to the Temple Mount. So they're basically saying, listen, the Dome of the Rock is not that important to us. And that's coming from Saudi. Okay, so it would not be far-fetched if this exiled prince came into power and helped them fight for the removal of the Dome of the Rock to see the third temple rebuilt.
They want to remove this Dome of the Rock. Take it stone by stone, place it somewhere else where it's even more holy for them than Jerusalem, and allow the Jewish people to build their temple. If we succeed in doing this, there will be world peace.
Exactly. Wow.
If I told you that the third temple was already being prepared and you didn't even know it? Right now, in Jerusalem, quiet steps are being taken. The Jews began building the third temple from underground, using their access to the remnants of the first and second temples.
So there you go. You heard him say it, right? They could just take the Dome of the Rock piece by piece and put it somewhere else, somewhere that is, safe for Islam and Muslim worshipers, somewhere that's more significant for them. So they're already starting to push this narrative. That video, that interview and walkthrough was very recent. And then you kind of seen it go into a woman saying that they're secretly kind of rebuilding the temple already underneath of the Western Wall and the Dome of the Rock here. And that actually seems to be true. If you go do some research, there is very much still a foundation left from the second temple. And, rumor has it that Israel is already working on the foundation, the second temple's foundation being the foundation for the third temple. That's pretty interesting. So I'm gonna touch on this real quick. This article was back in from January of last year, but it says Trump's win sparks hope for Jewish sovereignty on the Temple Mount. Now listen, in Israel, the Jews really believe that Donald Trump is like the reincarnated Cyrus. You know, they hung banners all over Israel saying Cyrus the Great is still alive. They really are looking for Donald Trump to be the one to help them get this temple rebuilt. They are basically expecting it out of him. And so with Donald Trump's building skills and being in construction and real estate all of his life, I don't put it past that obviously he would be able to do it. But they are really looking towards him as the one to get this done. This is a real picture in Israel. This is not AI. They were hanging up banners, you know, showing the American and Israeli flag bonded together. And the title says Cyrus the Great is alive. So, I mean, they are putting big emphasis on Donald Trump being related to Cyrus, who we just talked about with the Cyrus Accord. But they're putting big emphasis on Donald Trump being the one to help get this temple rebuilt. I got to hurry up because I've already went past the marker that I put for myself to stop at. But I love this topic. I think it's important for us all to look at because the temple rebuild is something that we have in real time. Not that other things aren't, but it's one of those things that we know that's going to happen, and we see it taking place daily, the fight, the push for the rebuilding of the temple. And here's why it matters the most, because the Bible repeatedly describes end time events happening in a temple. Daniel 9:27 says sacrifices will be stopped. Matthew 24:15 speaks of the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place. And then 2 Thessalonians 2 says the man of lawlessness sits in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. And then Revelation 11 shows a temple being measured in the final days. You cannot stop sacrifices if sacrifices don't exist. You cannot desecrate a holy place if that doesn't exist. And you cannot sit in the temple of God if there is no temple. This isn't symbolic language. Paul didn't write symbolically. John didn't see a metaphor. A literal temple must be built before the return of Christ. And that is why the third temple matters, whether people are comfortable with it or not. Anytime I talk about the rebuilding of the temple, I always find Christians in my comments telling me this is irrelevant because Jesus was our one and only sacrifice. And I understand that. That's not why we talk about this. It's not like if they rebuild a temple, I'm going to hop on a flight to go start sacrificing bulls and goats and lambs and sheep and birds and whatever it is that they're going to sacrifice. We're watching for this because we know that it's going to be used in the end times by the Antichrist, the man of lawlessness. I want to show you how prepared they really are. Number one, let me tell you this. If they had the green light, like if the Dome of the Rock was moved out of the way, piece by piece, like that man talked about, if they move that out of the way right now, from what I've gathered, they could have the new temple rebuilt within like 30 to 60 days. 30 to 60, that's quick. They have the blueprints, they have all the priests, all the they have it. Let me show you. So here you can see them practicing on the sacrifices. They do a lot of rehearsal with sacrifices, but this is stuff that they are doing daily. This is actually an exact replica model that you can find if you go to Jerusalem, to the Temple Institute. This, you'll see this all over in Jerusalem, especially in places connected to the rebuilding of the temple. But this is exactly what it's going to look like. So let me step out of the way. If you want, you can take a screenshot of that or whatever. But this is exactly what their third temple is going to look like. I find that fascinating. Like I said, they have the blueprint. They know exactly what they want it to look like. They have the funding for it. You can go back and find articles where, oh man, I forget the guy's name, but one of the political leaders has already offered to put up all the money for the funding of the temple. This is very interesting to me. This would be a part of the priestly garments. Both of these are the priestly garments. And this right here, I'm gonna show you a better picture of this, but this is the incense altar. So when they light off the incense, you read about that in the Bible a lot, that God, called for an incense to be made. That is the incense altar right there. And these are the actual pieces that are going to go into the temple when it's built. It's here behind me, this big golden piece. This is the showbread table. You can read about the showbread table when you start to read about David in the Bible, but this is the actual piece again that's going to go into the temple. Here is that, which I like this picture because it shows it a little better. He's actually performing the incense ceremony, but this is the incense altar that they will have in the temple, lighting incense to God. To them, they believe these things must happen, man. And we know as believers that all of this has been done away with. Animal sacrifices, lighting incense to God. We have our sacrifice, we have our atonement made in Jesus Christ, but that is the piece that they will put in the third temple.
This mountain has the ability to bring peace to the entire world.
Before we expect the world to understand it, that this is the headquarters of healing, it's the headquarters of creation, it's the headquarters of anything that's important in this world. Am Yisrael needs to know. Like Rashi in the Torah that says, if the nations of the world come and ask you, why is this your land? It's not so that you have what to tell them, it's that what you have to tell yourself.
The Jewish people first, but then the whole world, understanding that we have to build inside ourselves that desire and elevate the world to a place where we're ready to start putting the bricks of Beit HaMikdash.
April 16th in the Jordan Valley, the West Bank. Settlers install a flag on Palestinian land. In this case, it is not the official state flag, but the Third Temple flag, associated with the far-right Gush Emimim movement. Their goal? To rebuild the temple.
So there we have it, man. You can see how right now the fight, the push in order to have this temple rebuilt is real. It's coming. I believe we'll see it within any time from now until maybe like 5 years. That's the timeline that I personally give it. I think this is going to happen fast, especially with the Board of Peace being in place and what they're going to be doing in Gaza. I think all of this is starting to connect. But you can see it just in the headlines alone that, the Muslim soldiers that used to control the Temple Mount, they're starting to kind of be pushed out. The laws on the Temple Mount are starting to be loosened a little bit. They're returning to be able to pray on the Temple Mount, bring prayer books or handouts like they haven't been able to do for 2,000 years. There's just things that we're seeing. People are fighting. U.S. Congress, women and men are starting to fight for this now. I think we're going to start to see this happen pretty rapidly. The conversation is more public than it's ever been. So, this isn't about fear. It's about discernment. Jesus told us to watch, not panic, not set dates, and not chase speculation. But when you see systems forming, when you see worship merging with control, when you see prophecy lining up piece by piece, you don't mock it. You don't ignore it. You pay attention, because the third temple is not about God needing sacrifices again. It's about the world preparing a throne for the wrong king. And scripture tells us clearly, when these things begin to happen, lift up your head, stay awake, stay rooted, and do not give your allegiance to any system that asks for what belongs to God alone. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me, man. Do me a favor, if you're enjoying this content, if you're enjoying these conversations, leave a like, comment, share this with a friend. The more that you do these things, it helps these videos get put in front of people like you that would enjoy these conversations as well, man. Thank y'all for being with me. I love you. I'll see you on the next one. God bless.